Hello, today we're going to read Chapter 4, Coming Home. On the morning of August 13th, 1805, Lewis and his 3 men spotted 2 Shoshone women and a girl. The Indians bowed their heads. They expected to be killed. But Lewis spoke to them kindly. He gave them beads and mirrors. As a sign of peace, he also painted the Indians' cheeks red. The 3 Shoshone agreed to take Captain Lewis and his men to their village. How sad is that they expected to be killed right away? So the Shoshone probably didn't have a very positive relationship with most white men at this point. They were on their way when 60 Shoshone warriors appeared on horses. They thundered towards Lewis and his men. Their chief got off his horse and greeted Lewis with a hug. He then took the 4 strangers to his village. There, the explorers and Indians smoked the peace pipe together. So this is similar to what a peace pipe would look like. And they would sit in a circle, they would smoke it together, and it was a sign of trust or peace among them. So if you smoked this together, then it was expected that you were trustworthy and that you could keep your word and they would be able to make deals and such together. Lewis asked the chief to come meet the rest of the explorers. A Shoshone woman was with them, Lewis said. The chief agreed to go, but his warriors feared that Lewis was leading them into a trap. Meanwhile, Clark approached with the main group. Sacagawea was walking along a riverbank. Suddenly, she saw Indians on horses in the distance. Bird Woman stared at them. Then she began dancing with joy and sucking on her fingers. This was an Indian sign meaning, "These are my people." The Shoshone warriors were happy to see Sacagawea too. Now they knew that the white men meant no harm. Together, the Indians and the explorers headed toward the Shoshone village. When they were nearly there, a young woman pushed her way through the crowd. She hugged Sacagawea. They began talking excitedly. Bird Woman had found her dearest friend. She was the girl who escaped from the Minotee. Sacagawea had not seen her for 5 years. At the village, the captains met with the chief. Sacagawea had to translate. She had barely sat down when she looked at the chief. Weeping with joy, she rushed to him and threw her blanket over him as a token of love. The Shoshone chief was her brother. It was Camawait. So this is just an image of Sacagawea and her brother, the chief, with baby Pomp inside one of the Shoshone teepees, kind of smiling and regathering and rejoicing together. Camawait was happy to be with his long-lost sister. The brother and sister talked a while. Then Bird Woman sat down to translate. She was so overjoyed at seeing her brother that she kept bursting into tears. But the chief had to act dignified. Can you imagine if you haven't seen your family for 5 years, how emotional that would be? And you're supposed to sit there and kind of translate and be the business person between you and your family? Sacagawea explained that the captains needed horses. Asking even simple questions was very hard. That was because they went from English to French to Minotee to Shoshone. So I'm just gonna... When the Lewis and Clark wanted to translate, they said something in English, which got translated to French, which got translated to Minotee, which got translated to Shoshone. The chief's answers went from Shoshone to Minotee to French to English. So they're using 4 different languages, and it's getting translated back and forth between Lewis and Clark and Chief Camawait. A deal was made. The explorers would give the Indians battle axes, knives, and clothing. In exchange, the chief would supply horses and guides. I think that's a key part there. They're not just getting horses, they're also getting some Shoshone to help guide them. Now the expedition had a way to cross the Bitterroot Mountains. Sacagawea and the explorers spent several days with the Shoshone. Sacagawea learned some very sad news. Most of her family was dead. Camawait, another brother, and her sister's little boy were the only living relatives. Bird Woman must have been tempted to stay with her people. However, she chose to move on with the corpse of Discovery. We can only guess why. Perhaps she felt loyal to the explorers. They had treated her and Pomp kindly. She may have never felt so important before. The chance to visit other Indian tribes and see the ocean must have also been exciting to a young girl. The explorers were still among the Shoshone when Bird Woman overheard something shocking. Her brother had changed his mind. This is her brother in the scene. He was going to break his promise. He was going to keep the horses and take his hungry people to hunt buffalo. Sacagawea told Charbonneau what she had learned. She asked him to tell Captain Lewis. Lewis confronted Camawait. The chief was ashamed. He would keep his word after all, he said. Once again, Sacagawea had helped save the expedition. Without horses, the explorers could not have continued westward. I think it's interesting here because the peace pipe that they smoked in the beginning was really a Native American tradition or Shoshone tradition of keeping peace and showing trust. And they're the ones who were going to break that promise. So it just goes to show you that how difficult the relationship between the white man and the Native Americans were during this time. And even though they were trying to be trusting, that trust really wasn't there or cemented down between them. In late August, the moon when the geese shed their feathers, Sacagawea said farewell to her family and friends. Now it was time for the explorers to start climbing the Bitterroots. So here's an image of what the Bitterroot Mountains look like. And then this is a drawing that somebody made of Lewis and Clark's expedition making their way up with the horses over the mountains. Okay. And now I want to show you where we're at on our map. Okay, so we're now at this green star here. So we've moved a short distance from meeting up with the Shoshone and going over the Bitterroot Mountains. Again, they're traveling much slower now than they seemed to in the beginning. Okay, so next week we're going to continue on with our book and we will read chapter 5, To the Pacific. So maybe we're finally going to make it to the Pacific Ocean. Okay, see you then.